I am Chelsea Cross, millennial marketing strategist, personal branding expert, and LinkedIn Learning top performing instructor. And I am so happy to be here with you because we have such a phenomenal live stream set up and we are ready to go because today, depending on where you're joining from, could be today, could be tonight. Where are you joining from, actually? I'm going to open up the chat right now. So we're coming to you live thanks to my platform and partner Restream on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And I could chat with all of you from all channels. So tell me hello, where you're coming in from, where you're joining in from, who you are, what you do, how you feel today. We have a really, really great topic of conversation with the perfect guest expert, because I'm sure it's very top of mind for all of you. We're talking all you need to know for tax season, prep, plan, and get that maximum refund. Who doesn't want to get that maximum refund? With TurboTax tax expert and CPA, Lisa Greene-Lewis. And not only is she here to really answer so many important questions that I hear are so top of mind from all of my polls and surveys and tweets and posts that I've been sending out over the past few weeks. So I know all of you have just as many questions as I do, because 2020 brought a lot of changes going on in the world. And I also want to just make sure that we are streaming live across all channels. So let me know if you're seeing me on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I'm just confirming that we're all synced up before we get this conversation started. I see LinkedIn. Hello, everyone. Dropping it into the chat. Okay. Last week, hey, Carlos. From Facebook, I see LinkedIn. Let me know, what about Twitter? Something is going on with our Twitter sphere. Hold on a second. Want to make sure before we jump into it with Lisa, we are going live on all channels. So while I have some of you, please let me know if you have any questions you want to drop in the chat for Lisa. We're talking all things you need to know for tax season and how to prep, plan, and get that maximum refund. So hopefully we are going live on Periscope. Okay, well, we're about to dive in here anyway so that we can get the most out of Lisa. Because Lisa, welcome to the C-Suite. Thank you so much for your time today. I know it's a busy day for you going on.
Yes, thank you for having me. It is busy, yes. Another relief plan is set to be signed soon, so we are very busy.
Yeah, so is that something that we should all be, keeping an eye out for, like within a 24-hour update? I know it's a lot of, all of us are wanting to know what's going on with this bill.
Yeah, well, you can even log into the TurboTax blog. We have information on what is proposed in the bill to keep you aware. And so we're just waiting for signature. I know I've been in back-to-back meetings and online, so we're waiting for signature, but we will have up-to-date information, on third stimulus coming, unemployment that's in the bill. So check out the TurboTax blog to find out up-to-date information.
Fantastic, because all of us have been chomping at the bit already for this to move through and what it will be. But Lisa, you're with us today to not just talk about the stimulus in particular, but to really help answer the questions that I think everyone has, because let's face it, prepping and planning and filing your taxes is never just a 1, 2, 3 easy thing. And 2020 was a rough year with a lot of unexpected changes for a lot of us. So I'm so happy to have you for the next 30 minutes. And I would love to get into it with you because top of mind is, what are the key things we could do to simplify this process? I always, when I'm talking to my fellow entrepreneur friends, even those that are working for, a corporation or organization, I feel like it's always a very stressful time of the year. So let's dive in and start, how to simplify, right? What are the key things we could do to simplify this process?
Yes. The first thing you could do is don't procrastinate. People that wait until the last minute, they tend to leave important things out. forms that report your income, you don't want to leave those out because the IRS gets a report or a form that matches what you get that reports your income. Also, very important, receipts for your expenses. They can be worth deductible deductible expenses. So, your receipts, if you drop things off at a charity, that could be a deduction. Your child's daycare. So I would just remember things like that. And then especially if you're self-employed are able to deduct so many things that employees are not able to deduct. And I know we're going to talk more about self-employed. So I would definitely say those things. And then with the average refund being close to $3,000 and close to 75% of people receiving a tax refund last year, go online and e-file with direct deposit. That is the fastest way to get your tax refund. And the IRS, they do state that they will issue 9 out of 10 tax refunds within 21 days or less of acceptance of your return. If you e-file.
And if you e-file. And you said, the first thing you said was don't procrastinate. Now, this could be something that not everybody's so excited to do every year, but of course, not procrastinating is only going to help the process move along and for you to go done, ready for next year, right? So at what time in the year do you really think that everyone should start taking action? Because you could file extensions or file on time, right? But what is that time of the year where everyone should bookmark in the calendar, start taking tax prep now? What would you recommend?
I would recommend as soon as your forms start flowing in, by January 31st. Some people may see them earlier. Some people may be able to access, forms related to their income online. I always set up a folder, and then as the mail comes in, I just start putting all the information in one folder so it's all in one place and ready to go when I sit down to do my taxes. And then, if you're self-employed or you have other expenses, that's a little different. Like self-employed should be tracking throughout the year their income and expenses, whether, you set aside time monthly or quarterly. It's helpful, just to track year round so you're not doing it at tax time.
Right, which is only going to make that crunch time that much more stressful. You did also tease the difference between being self-employed and being an employee. So let's break it down, Lisa. Let's talk self-employed first. I'm personally self-employed, been running my own business for 15 years. I know I get those 1099s in, boom, boom, boom. I start filing them right away and, organizing my folder right away. So can you break it down for us, tax prep for self-employed, top tips versus, the employee?
Yes. So for self-employed, first of all, you should receive a 1099. You should have been seeing those forms. There's a new form this year. It used to be the 1099 Miss that reports your income. Now it's the 1099 NEC. You also may see the 1099K if you're paid by a third-party provider and you have 200 transactions and make $20,000. So look out for those forms. Even if you don't receive those forms and you're self-employed, you still should claim your income. The 1099 NEC is issued if you make $600 or more. But I would just definitely keep those 1099s together. And then also your expenses. There's so many expenses for self-employed, whether you're new to diving into being self-employed, your startup costs. A lot of people dove into side gigs. So driving, a driver or a delivery platform, your car can be a huge deduction. You can deduct either your mileage or your actual expenses. So keep track of those. And then remember, TurboTax Self-Employed, we uncover industry-specific deductions. Some you may not even realize that you're eligible for. And then we have our TurboTax Live Self-Employed tax experts that you can be matched with. And they are very experienced in self-employed taxes, and they can either guide you through the process, or new this year, our TurboTax Live experts you can fully hand over your taxes to them.
And you know what, that leads me into, my next question, where how can a tax expert help to uncover surprising tax deductions or credit refund? Because there are so many elements at play when you're self-employed, maybe working from home, using your home, as a write-off, as your business address, right? There's so many details that you can really miss if you don't have that person guiding you, right? That expert really guiding you through this process. Unfortunately, there's not a course in college, how to ace your taxes, which I wish there was, right? But that's why we have tax experts and CPAs like you. So you kind of did tease some of the offerings that TurboTax even specializes in and provides. It's not like a blanket fit for everybody, right? They have the TurboTax Self-Employed, TurboTax Live, and also the ability to really interact one-on-one, get all of your questions, personalized to you in real time with a live tax expert. But for those that have been filing on their own for forever, or thinking of doing that or not doing that going forward, what's the difference between working with someone, and then, or choosing to file on your own? Where's the pros and cons?
Yeah, so if you're using something like TurboTax and you want to do your taxes yourself, we have guidance throughout. It asks simple questions about you. You're not required to know forms or tax laws. And based on your answers, it does the calculations behind the scenes for you and puts the information on the correct forms. You're also able to jumpstart your taxes, whether you do it yourself or with a tax expert with TurboTax, just by snapping a photo of your W-2 or your 1099 NEC. You snap a photo and all that information goes to the correct form. So you really are avoiding, manual entry and just jumpstarting your taxes. So, that's one of the differences between doing it yourself. You're getting guidance. And then with our TurboTax Live tax experts, you're having the ability to we use AI and machine learning, even if you do your taxes yourself or with the TurboTax Live expert. And so based on your answers, you're matched with a tax expert that specializes in like whatever your situation is.
What you need.
So
exactly.
That's the beauty. You're getting both, but it's wherever you are in your tax journey, you could use both.
Right. And that could be because, you just started your business, you just started a side hustle while you're managing your full-time business, you just got furloughed, you just built a home office, right? There are so many life happenings, especially within the past year, that we've had to pivot and make drastic differences or changes when it's also come to our, being financially impacted. And it's so great to me, it allows me to, put my head on the pillow and know that I am getting I'm going about it right. I'm going to get the best help. I have the expert in my corner. And to me, it's a win-win when you can work with somebody one-on-one. So with that being said, also, I'd love to talk about steps we can take if we had a major personal life change, like bought or sold a new home, had a baby, moved to a different state. What are your top tips for the personal life changes?
Yeah, so the top tips are make sure you have those forms that are worth deductions related to those events. So if you bought a home, have your Form 1098 that reports your home mortgage interest and also your property taxes or your property tax bill, as well as your closing statement that can report points you paid. All of that is worth a deduction. And home ownership, that's one of the biggest deductions that people have because they can itemize their deductions. If you had a baby, make sure you have a social security number for your baby and make sure you have the accurate one, because babies and dependent children are worth valuable tax deductions, but you have to have the accurate social security number in order to get those. And then also, while we're talking about things that happened last year, I know everybody knows about stimulus payments. If you had a baby in 2020, the IRS didn't know that when they issued the first and second stimulus payments. So you may be able to get more stimulus for your baby in the form of a recovery rebate credit when you file your taxes. And TurboTax, we have proactive guidance on the events that happened last year, like stimulus or like unemployment throughout the program. So that's one thing to keep in mind.
Fantastic. And even for those who might have moved to a new state, personally, I know so many people who actually did go do that or had to do that just within the past year. Any tips or things to look out for form-wise, things to note for anybody who is in transit or transition, moving from state to state?
Yeah, so if you permanently moved, I would make sure, the IRS has your new address on record. If it was a temporary, I know, based on what happened, a lot of people, they had their home in one state and they moved somewhere temporarily. I would just keep in mind that you could be taxed in 2 states if that's the case, but the IRS does look at 2 main things to decide if you'll be taxed in 2 states, and it's how long you've been in the other state. So 183 days or more, you may be taxed in the other state. And they also look at what's called your domicile. So like where your voter registration is, where your DMV records. So they'll look at that, but then not to worry. A lot of states do have reciprocal agreements where you won't be taxed in 2 states. So, you could check with your state, but also our TurboTax on our website, we have content around who has a reciprocal agreement. And then our program is already programmed for that.
Fantastic.
So you won't be double taxed. Yeah.
Right. And there's, because everybody is in their own, obviously, lane in regards to their personal and professional life changes, just a great resource to note is the TurboTax blog, because you have so many great different individual blogs referencing to individual needs or because of certain, whether you just started a new business, whether you just bought or sold stock, whether you just had a baby, if you need individual resources, these are available to you on the TurboTax blog. I have a great blog post coming out soon, so you can always look at chelseacross.com blog. And I will connect the link in the recorded version of the live stream so that we can try to consolidate all of these great resources in just one place to click. But the TurboTax blog is always available, just to make a note. So for the same question, right, because there's a lot of personal change and professional change just within the past year due to the global climate. So steps to take if we had a major professional shift, like started a new business, started a side hustle.
Yeah, steps to take. I think we touched on it a little bit. If you started a side hustle or you're, self-employed or freelancer, you are considered self-employed. So you want to track your income and expenses, and definitely your mileage, for driving to a client or picking up supplies or whatever you're doing. You want to make sure you do that. Also, as a self-employed person, you want to remember that you can take the home office deduction if you have a dedicated space in your home for a home office. So with that, that's one of the biggest deductions too that self-employed can get, because it's a percentage of your home mortgage interest, your rent, your property taxes, your utilities, your insurance. So definitely, if you have a home office, I wouldn't hesitate to take that. It does have to be a dedicated space, though. It can't be like your kitchen table where your family eats and your kids do homework.
Right. And doesn't have to, even if you dedicate a specific room in your home and, and that's your dedicated office, that could qualify as your professional space for write-off purposes for working from home. I happen to be coming to you live for mine right now. And that definitely does add up and, make a big impact for taxes for those who are self-employed and working from home. which is great to totally take advantage of, right, for tax filings. And I also, there's so much going on in the stock market, in cryptocurrency, and my husband is a day trader, and his phone is getting blown up with, do I do this? Do I do that? Do you think this is gonna, spike? Is this a crash and burn situation? I mean, more than ever because of what is going on in the universe. So many of us have bought or sold stock in the past year. What do we need to know to best prepare for taxes, get the maximum refund? Take us through those steps for those who have bought or sold stock in the past year.
Yes, that is, there was a huge spike in people becoming new investors last year because of the volatile stock market and prices dropping. I know TurboTax conducted a survey with Maru, and we found that 22% in that survey had investment transactions, and 55% said they had sales transactions. So that's just something to note. We are seeing a huge amount of people doing that. One thing I would remember is your tax situation may be different if you sold your stock that you held under a year. In that case, you're taxed at your ordinary tax rate. So that's the tax rate that you get based on your income, on your taxable income when you do your taxes. If you sell stock that you held over a year, then you're taxed at a much lower rate. It's 0% for some income brackets, 15% for some. So it's much lower tax rate. And then if you're planning to sell and not sure whether you should hold on, TurboTax, we have this free calculator on the TurboTax blog, and it can inform you of what your taxes will be, whether you sell under a year or over a year, so you can make that decision. It can also help you figure out your taxes if you already sold. And then another thing to remember, if you had some losing stock, you can offset your gains if you had a losing stock. So remember that as well. And if your loss is more than your gain, you would have a capital loss, and you can offset that against ordinary income, like your wages, up to $3,000. So, that can be a tax savings there. And I know, the beginning earlier this year, we saw the GameStop craze, and everybody was making a lot of money, and that's for tax year 2021. But, there are some things that people in that situation could do. If they had a losing stock by the end of the year, they could do what they call tax loss harvesting and offset. And then also, maybe they could pay some estimated taxes throughout the year to help their tax situation.
Great tips to know. I know this is a very trending conversation right now, getting in and trying to make a win in the stock market or in crypto, but what are the ramifications, or what are the things we need to then do to appropriately file for taxes, whether it's last year, next year, this year, and so be it. So really great tips. And I have to say, this is
sorry. And one thing I wanted to bring up that's very important. So TurboTax, for the first time in 10 years for last tax season, we redesigned our TurboTax Premier product for investors. We saw that there was already an increase for that year. And the great thing about it is we get after the pain point for investors. One of their pain points is like putting in all of their sales transactions and accurately accounting for the capital gains and losses. And with TurboTax Premier, you can import 2,050 transactions at once, upload and import those transactions at once. And 1,550 stock transactions at once, and over 2,000 cryptocurrency transactions at once.
Oh, wow.
And you have the ability to do this because we work with hundreds of financial institutions and you can import your information directly from those institutions.
And that's a great offering for those people who are looking for assistance, and that's the TurboTax Premier offer, correct?
Yes. Yes.
So TurboTax Premier is for those who, bought or sold stock, or more of the investor,
Right.
right? So TurboTax Self-Employed, of course, for those who are self-employed. And then TurboTax Live gives you that one-on-one opportunity to connect in real time, one-on-one with a TurboTax Live expert. So again, so many great offerings to help your individual life, personally and professionally, get organized, prepare, plan, and get the maximum refund for your taxes. So really, really great opportunities to seize at our fingertips right now. I don't know how anyone could really do this themselves unless they have the CPA or, accountant background. There's way too many things to take into consideration. And also the other thing to take into consideration is the fact, I'm looking at my questions here. Obviously, we talked about some of the impacts for 2020, right? Personal shift, professional shift. But then there's also those that have to keep in mind managing student loan debt or credit card debt, right? So top tips for those managing student loan and credit card debt. What should we be considering or keeping top of mind?
Yeah, if you have a student loan, just keep in mind, you can claim the student loan deduction up to $2,500. That's even if someone is making payments on your behalf, but you're the student, you could still take the deduction as long as you're not claimed as a dependent. Like, so for instance, if your parents are paying it, as long as you're not their dependent and you're doing your own taxes, you could claim that deduction. Some students may see less of that deduction this year if they took advantage of, under the CARES Act, it allowed you to forego paying your student loans until January 31st of this year. So you may see lower student loan deduction, but keep in mind, definitely you're able to take that deduction as long, along with other education tax benefits and credits.
We have some great questions coming in for you, Lisa, before I let you go. And I think that they're also relevant for several, for not just Carlos, but for everybody. This is a great question. So Carlos is saying, I'm going to file my taxes this month before April 15th, and IRS might possibly delay its due date because of the current pandemic. So if the IRS decided to delay tax due date and he already finished filing taxes before the due date is delayed, will his refund delay as well?
So I can't speak on the tax deadline delay specifically because they have not announced that or anything like that yet. But the IRS, they still say that 9 out of 10 tax refunds will be issued within 21 days or less if you e-file with direct deposit, and that's 21 days or less of acceptance with the IRS.
Okay. And another great question from Umar is, if we had a loss in a S corporation, can you offset this loss in your personal income? Are you able to answer that question?
Yes. So the S corporation would be separate from your personal income. The S corporation, I know in S corporations, you are required to take a salary. So you're probably paid on W-2 income based on like the net earnings. So that loss would be offset in the S corporation return. And then you would have your earnings from the W-2 would go into your personal return. So it's two separate returns.
Two separate returns. Well, hopefully those questions those answers definitely helped a little bit. Of course, there is the TurboTax Live opportunity to speak in real time, one-on-one, customized to your situation if you would like to take advantage of that opportunity right now.
Yeah.
But my last question for you, Lisa, before we do wrap it up, is one that I think is, something we should definitely not forget. And it's, what are the biggest mistakes people tend to make when it comes to managing their taxes? What are those big mistakes so that we could identify them and make people aware of not making those mistakes ongoing?
I know we did talk about the biggest one is procrastinating and not getting them done because you could leave something out. Also thinking that you need to go somewhere and get help from a tax expert. Now we have our TurboTax Live tax experts, where whether you want guidance throughout your return or you want to fully hand them over, you can use our TurboTax Live tax experts and you don't have to leave home. So I would say that's that's a big one. And then definitely not e-filing with direct deposit. I think the majority of people e-file with direct deposit now, but if you haven't tried going online and e-filing with direct deposit, I would definitely recommend, since that's the fastest way to get your tax refund.
Fast way to get tax refund. Well, I so appreciate taking, a little bit of a deeper dive into all of these very top of mind questions and how to prepare and plan and file to get your maximum refund, but also just do your taxes right? Making sure that we're not missing anything in this, kind of interesting year that we're coming off of, right? And a lot of the pivot and change personally and professionally that none of us could have expected. And so, right, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that to the best of our ability for our taxes. So I so appreciate your time, Lisa. And again, if you're watching the recorded file of this live stream, look in the comments section for the recap blog post. It's going to have kind of a recap of all the highlights we discussed on this live stream, in addition to some great resources for those of you who are first-time home buyers or just had a baby, started a side hustle, managing student loan debt. So we're trying to make it, we're trying to simplify the process for you all here today. And thanks to TurboTax, right, with all of their offerings. TurboTax Self-Employed, TurboTax Premier if you are the investor, and TurboTax Live if you want that one-on-one assistance.
And there's I'm sorry, there's also TurboTax Deluxe, so that would be more for the homeowner. Okay, and great. Then we have our TurboTax Basic as well.
Okay, so all these great opportunities.
And TurboTax Free Edition, so if you are if you have a simple return, 1040, no schedules, but you can have credits for your kids and unemployment, you can do your federal and state taxes for free.
I'm all about letting the experts help you with this to make sure that, life is more simplified and that you're doing everything as best as you possibly can. So again, thank you so much for joining us, Lisa. Looking forward to, yes, and looking forward to seeing what does happen, throughout the day with the stimulus news that we're all waiting for. And again, more information coming to you, but have a great rest of the day, everyone. We'll see you here on the C-Suite Live next week. And Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody.